Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if AI can really understand what we're thinking? Not just what we're saying, this new study dives into that question by looking at how AI describes things. Okay, imagine you are trying to tell a friend about a specific apple in a bowl full of fruit. You could just say the apple. But what if there are several apples? You might say the red apple. But what if they're all red? You'd probably skip the color and maybe say the big apple or the apple on the left. This is what researchers call a form of theory of mind, or TOM. It is about understanding what another person needs to know to find something. Classic TOM research often looks at whether AI can understand beliefs, like if someone thinks something false. But this study from researchers at Yale and the Max Planck Institute looks at a different, more immediate kind of understanding how AI guides your attention right here. Right now, in the moment. They wanted to see if AI, specifically vision language models or VLMs, can do what humans do naturally when we describe things to each other. Humans are really good at picking the right words to help someone spot an object quickly. For example, we strategically add descriptive words like color, but only when they're actually helpful. If every apple is red, saying the red apple doesn't help much and just slows things down. Humans avoid that. The researchers ask, do VLMs do this too? So we know AI is getting pretty good at talking. It can tutor, it can kind of read between the lines, and even help people question their own ideas. This makes us wonder if AI has something like a theory of mind, the ability to understand what is going on in a human mind. Previous studies mainly tested AI on things like false belief tasks. While AI can sometimes pass these, it often seems to be using shortcuts. The researchers here argue that TOM is more than just knowing what someone believes. It is also about understanding their dynamic mental processes, like where their attention is directed, or how they're searching for something. This kind of understanding is super important for communication. Think about it when you describe something. You are not just listing its features, you are trying to guide your listeners' eyes to it. This guidance is key for efficient communication. If there is just one cup, you say the cup. But if the table is cluttered, you'll add details like the blue cup. This helps your friend's visual search. But if everything on the table is blue, then saying the blue cup isn't helpful anymore. You might then describe its location, like the cup by the window. Humans do this automatically using an implicit model of how someone else's eyes scan a scene. This kind of quick, attention-based social understanding might be easier for AI to develop than the more complex belief systems. However, a lot of AI training is on text that talks about things that aren't happening right now, like past events or hypothetical situations. So, the big question is whether AI can learn to use language to truly guide attention in a real visual scene. To test this, the researchers set up an experiment. They showed different AI models images of objects, and for each image, they pointed to a specific target object. The AI's job was then to generate a description that would help a human listener identify that target object. The key was that the listener would see the same objects, but in completely different positions. So simple location descriptions wouldn't work. They had to rely on other features. In the first experiment, they simply asked the AI models called GPT-4o and GPT-5.2 to produce a description of the target object. They tested this in different scenarios. They varied the number of objects 1, 4, or 16, and how the colors were distributed. There were monochrome trials where all objects were the same color, polychrome trials where all objects were different colors, and pop-out trials where all the non-target objects were the same color, making the target stand out. The AI's description had to be accurate, meaning it correctly identified the target. They looked at the descriptions produced. What they found was pretty striking. Both AI models, GPT-4o and GPT-5.2, were overwhelmingly likely to include color adjectives in their descriptions, even when they weren't helpful. In most cases, they used color words almost 100% of the time, regardless of the situation. For example, in the monochrome condition, where every object was the same color, the AI would still often describe the target using that same color. In contrast, humans rarely do this. Human studies show that people are much more strategic. We only add redundant color words when it actually helps, like in the polychrome or pop-out conditions. Crucially, when all objects are the same color, the monochrome condition, humans almost completely stop using color descriptions, realizing they don't add any useful information for identifying the target. The AIs, however, seem to lack the strategic suppression of redundant information. They were overspecifying, meaning they were adding extra details that didn't help far more than humans do. This led the researchers to wonder if the AI just wasn't being told what to focus on. So, in a second experiment, they changed the instructions. They explicitly prompted the AI to analyze whether color information would meaningfully help the user find the target faster and to balance description length with search efficiency. They wanted the AI to think about visual search and efficiency. This made a difference, especially for the newer model, GPT 5.2. GPT-4o still tended to overuse color adjectives, but it did reduce its use in the monochrome conditions. GPT 5.2 showed a much clearer improvement. When it judged that color wouldn't be helpful, it correctly omitted the color description. It learned to suppress redundant color adjectives in monochrome displays, which is a step closer to human behavior, for example. In the monochrome trials with 4 or 16 objects, GPT 5.2 only overspecified a small percentage of the time, a huge improvement from experiment 1 and much closer to human performance. What does this all mean? The study found that while VLMs can successfully identify target objects, they don't spontaneously communicate in human-like ways. They have a strong tendency to include redundant information, like color adjectives, even when it is not helpful. This suggests they might not be modeling the listener's attention as effectively as humans do. They're good at describing, but not necessarily at communicating efficiently in the here and now. The researchers explained this by saying that human communication, especially referring to things in the moment, relies on social microprocesses. This means we're constantly, almost unconsciously, tracking what the other person is paying attention to. This is different from older ideas about theory of mind that focus on fixed beliefs. The study suggests VLMs might be missing these rapid attention tracking skills. However, when the AI was explicitly prompted to think about visual search and efficiency, its performance improved. This shows that these models can learn to be more strategic, especially models like GPT 5.2 that have more advanced reasoning capabilities. But here is the crucial part. Humans don't need to be explicitly told to be efficient communicators. It is something we do naturally. The fact that AI needs such prompts suggests it doesn't have the same intuitive grasp of efficient communication that humans do. The researchers also point out some limitations. They only tested AI models from OpenAI. They didn't look at how the typicality of a color affects description, like red strawberry versus red shoes. And they note that AI is generally trained on datasets that describe things rather than datasets focused on interactive communication. This training might be why they struggle with the back and forth of efficient communication. So while AI is getting incredibly advanced, the study highlights a specific area where it still falls short of human intuition. It can generate descriptions, but it doesn't yet fully grasp the art of guiding attention efficiently, which is a cornerstone of human social interaction. It seems like AI can be taught to be more strategic, but it is not yet an intuitive skill. This is an important reminder that even as AI becomes more capable, understanding the nuances of human social cognition remains a complex frontier. What I find fascinating here is the distinction between describing something and communicating effectively. This research beautifully shows that AI is getting better and better at the former. But the latter, which relies on this implicit understanding of another's mind and attention, is a much harder challenge. It makes you wonder about the future of human-AI interaction. Will AI ever truly get why sometimes saying less is more? I think this research suggests it's a long way off, but certainly a direction that future research will be pushing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think AI can ever truly develop this intuitive theory of mind for communication, or will it always be something we have to explicitly teach it? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into AI and psychology, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab for more, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.